Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Clear Path Retirement Radio Podcast. I'm Stewart Smith, as always, here with my buddy Mitch Davies.
Good to be back. Good to be back. I'm excited for this one.
And our lovely producer down there, Kathy Farah. How are you today, Kathy? Well, listen, we've been out for a few weeks. We've been taking some much needed vacation time. I've been down in Mexico just having the time of my life. Didn't want to come back. Back. And feeling spoiled as ever. But, you know, everybody's got to do that every now and then.
You got to. Yep.
I know Mitch just got back from Chicago,
I did. It
the
was
windy city.
Beautiful weather, beautiful time. But I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back. Got some much needed rest, and we're back into it.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to unplug and just take some time away, and it makes you come back even more ready and more excited than ever to get back to it. And I am excited to get back to it this week. So we're going to talk about some things that, you know, we see every day here at ClearPath. As far as how we help clients and the things that we see that we really can bring to their attention and hopefully help them with. And, you know, much like a doctor looks at an EKG, you know, a lot of times we're looking at clients' statements and clients' tax returns, and we're kind of going through and seeing what, you know, where are the cracks and where can we see opportunities to bring value and improve what they're doing? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, things that we see commonly. And I think this will help a lot of folks out there to kind of get dialed in on this stuff and maybe food for thought, get your wheels turning and get you thinking about it. And if we do that, then we've done our job, right?
That's right. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Got a lot of stuff here.
Well, let's start where most people probably think we wouldn't start, and that is with legacy planning cracks that we see, estate planning cracks that we see. And one is that, you know, the house is titled incorrectly.
Yeah.
We see this a lot. We see people come in and they say, you know, they'll tell us one thing like, no, the house is titled jointly. And when we really dive in and dial down, we see that, no, it's in one of their names, not the other name. Right. And that can be a problem, can it?
It can. And Stuart, you know, this is my favorite thing about working at ClearPath, man, is we, like you said, probably wouldn't expect us to start on the legacy stuff, but we really try to spend time, again, bringing value in all the different ways. You know, we don't just look at investment statements and just look at returns. We're looking at all this stuff, and the house is a great place to start. You know, it's most people's, you know, most important asset, right? That's where you live. So we want to make sure that's titled the right way. We want to make sure there's no tax complications when it comes to you and your spouse, it comes to you and your heirs, however it is.
Yeah, I think we approach it the right way. We approach it in kind of what can we do for you and not maybe what can we, you know, get from you, right? Like that's a lot of advisors out there are going to just kind of jump right into those investment statements and say, okay, what's in this for me? And we don't do that here at ClearPath. We're looking at all kinds of ways to bring value and all kinds of ways that we can help you. And so, one of the cracks we see is that the house is titled incorrectly. You know, ultimately, I know here in South Carolina and probably most states, what you want to do is if you're a married couple, you definitely want that house titled joint with rights of survivorship. And that is incredibly important because what happens if the house is titled joint with rights of survivorship is that if something happens to one of you, the other one is pretty, you know, that nothing they need to do. The house is just kind of in their name at that point, and no paperwork drills, nothing to jump through. You're just kind of, you're good to go.
Right.
But where it can be a problem is, you know, what happens when that second person passes? Right. And that's the kind of stuff we deal with a lot. And if you don't have a TOD designation, a transfer on death designation, which basically acts as like a beneficiary designation on that title to that house, then, you know, that house is going through probate. And a lot of people go, oh, gosh,
Probate.
Not
Yeah.
probate, right? So probate's tough. It takes time and money and energy that most people don't have at that time. And so that can be an issue. And there's several ways to avoid that. TOD designation's one. We always really, really promote the living revocable trust here, and having the house titled into the trust, which is going to protect it in so many other ways, just other than who gets it when the second person dies.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we see is bank accounts don't have POD designations.
Yeah.
And what's a POD, Mitch?
So it's going to work the exact same. It stands for payable on death, and this is commonly how bank accounts will do it. Some of them will allow a transfer on death, but for all intent and purposes, they're the same thing. But this is often overlooked. It's not a requirement when you set up a bank account at all. You have to actually go and seek it out yourself. You could go start a checking account today, and they're not going to make you set up a POD. So it's very common to not have it, and people just think, oh, it's a bank account, whatever. But that money could be tied up for a long time, and having that extra, checking account or savings account ready for the heirs can really help speed up the probate process and help pay for some of those things. Yeah. So you want to make sure, go to your bank and just ask for a POD form. It's a 1 or 2 page form, but make sure you have that on checking accounts, savings accounts. It's going to act as a beneficiary designation and help smooth out the process.
Yeah, and especially if you don't have life insurance, which is, money that's going to be paid out pretty darn quickly after you're gone, to help cover with the, estate fees, if there are any, and, to just kind of keep things rolling until, the probate can be completed and all the assets can be distributed, hopefully according to the way you wanted them to be. And then, another thing we see is trust don't get funded, right? Like, what in the world? A lot of people don't understand that just establishing a trust is fantastic, and
Right.
that's a major step, is getting that trust established. But once that trust is established, you have to keep going. There are other things you need to do. And, for example, if you want your home, which is what the number one concern of people today is, how, making sure that their home doesn't go through probate. If you want that to happen, you have to go that extra step and pay somebody. Typically, in South Carolina, it has to be an attorney. But in some states, it could just be a title company or that sort of thing, to go ahead and retitle that house into the name of the trust. And that's how the trust gets funded. So 2 ways a trust gets funded. Let's go through them real quick here, Mitch. So the first way is you retitle something, right? You retitle it into the name of the trust. I have the Stewart Smith Living Revocable Trust, and I have retitled my home into that trust. If you don't do that, then the trust is worthless, right? If you don't have assets retitled into the trust, then you didn't fund the trust, and you did the trust for nothing. The other way is to, with certain assets, you're going to want to not retitle them into the trust, but you're going to want to name the trust as the beneficiary. And just help folks get clear on that. What's the difference there?
Yeah, this could be really confusing. The way I like to explain it, I try to keep it really simple. Any asset that you could hypothetically make joint has to be retitled in the trust. So I like to think about like the house, bank accounts, anything that you could technically own together with a partner, you can retitle into the trust. But if it's something that has to be held yourself, like IRAs, 401ks, life insurance, you can't own an IRA jointly, right? It has to be in your name because you have to take RMDs, that kind of thing. Those things you have to make the trust the beneficiary of. So try to keep that distinction. Think, if I could hypothetically make this joint, we need to retitle it. If it has to be in my name, like my Roth IRA, we want to make the trust the beneficiary of that asset.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to, make an IRA, retitle it into the trust, because like Mitch said, required minimum distributions are coming on that thing, and you will create taxable events that don't need to happen. and trusts are taxed at different rates than individuals. And so you could cause yourself all kinds of problems there. But what most people do is they title real property, their homes, their vehicles, land, real property into the name of the trust. And they make, certain accounts like IRAs, Roth IRAs, um, those things will typically, yeah, like you say, the beneficiary will be the trust. Now, we get the question all the time. It's like, hey, I've already got the beneficiaries named on my IRA. Isn't that going to bypass probate anyway? And the answer is yes, it will. But, it in that case, it will bypass probate. It will go directly to the beneficiaries. If you're good with that, if you like that beneficiary designation, you're good with it, then that's fine. You can leave it alone. You don't need to make the trust the beneficiary. But if you want those assets disseminated any other way other than all at once, you want to give it out over a number of years or at certain ages and that kind of thing, then that can be done with the trust, not through a beneficiary designation. So, that's one reason why you might want to just go ahead and make the trust the beneficiary. The other thing that we see a lot of is people, they kind of like to control everything from one place. It just makes everything clean. If you have the things titled in the trust that you want in the trust, like your home and your vehicles and all of that, and then you have the trust as beneficiary on everything else, and you change your mind about who you want your beneficiary to be, or you want to change the percentages, or you want to do this or that, that can all just be done from the trust.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to each one of these accounts and try to remember and so that's just a clean way to kind of get things established.
That's so important. I like to call the trust the ultimate beneficiary, because it's
Yeah.
like, how many times have we seen people think they've got that covered and they have an old 401k that they still have split between 4 people and they want to change it to 2? It's like, why go through the hassle of doing all that paperwork when you can just have everything funneled to the trust? You got the houses going in, you got all your IRAs, everything going into one place, and just change it right there. Makes life so much easier.
Absolutely. One control point. So then, another thing that we see is, trusts are out of date.
Yeah.
Right? Like these trusts need to be revisited from time to time. And a lot of times, if you have a trust that's 25 years old, a lot in the world has changed. And it might be the language, it might be, you just need to re-sign it, re-witness it, redate it, and just kind of re-verify, hey, this is still the way I feel 25 years later. Because if you don't, you're always opening the door to that trust being challenged somehow. And for someone to say, hey, this was 25 years old, and I don't know that their wishes really stayed in that exact place for all that time. So, that can be an issue.
Especially if it's coming from a different state. The biggest example we see is, in South Carolina, we don't have community property, but California and New York do, two of the biggest states in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're coming from a different state where there's different property laws, like the community property law, which we don't have, definitely you need to get that updated. You need to get that done here in South Carolina if this is where you live.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I can also say that another thing we don't see that really goes in line with the trust is the healthcare and financial power of attorney.
Yeah.
A lot of times people do the trust and they don't do the healthcare and financial power of attorney. And that is a very, very important piece of the puzzle there, because, I can tell you from personal experience that when and if the time comes, and most people think, of like power of attorney, like I've got to be, in a wheelchair or, like incapacitated from an accident or something. But that's, what the true matter and the true reality of it is there's going to come a day where you're just not able to make good decisions anymore. And most people don't want to accept that. They don't want to believe that. And so, just understand that, of course, I'm 55. I don't want to think about the day that comes when I'm not making good decisions and Mitch has to step in and start, making decisions for me. But the true reality is it probably will. And the better I accept that now, and the better planning I can do, right? And the better I can address it. So having those things in place, and I will tell people constantly, like, look, if you don't have these things in place, the state will step in and make decisions for you.
Right.
And I don't want to be at the mercy of the state or federal government on any level whatsoever when it comes to my financial or healthcare matters. I want it to be someone that I pick ahead of time while I'm still, of good mind and body, and can really, name the people that I want. So, yeah. So the next thing I would say is people aren't contributing enough to retirement plans. Look, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
Vanguard just came out with a study. Vanguard's really good at these studies, and they just came out with a great study here this year that, the average American has about $167,000 in their 401k. And that's pretty much your kind of top tiers. The range is from about 44,000 up to 167,000. And listen, if you've got 167,000, just imagine for a minute, at a 4% withdrawal rate on that, how long is that money going to last? And, people are really missing these opportunities. And, there is the opportunity, and Mitch could tell you better than I could. What's the max you can put in a 401k right now?
If you're under 50, it's like 27,000, and then above 50, you get the catch up, and then there's also a super catch up above 55 that can get up into the 30,000s. But that's a huge opportunity. And then you also have the IRA contributions available too, which are either 7 or 8,000 depending on your age. But even more concerningly than the average, the median number that Vanguard put out, and again, they have the most data on this in the country, was 44,000. So averages are misleading because they factor in these outliers, right?
Right.
But the median is $44,000 into retirement accounts. And that is a better representation of America, right? Working class America. And that's extremely concerning.
Yeah. I think they said at a 4% withdrawal rate, that's about $147 a month.
Right.
And come on. What are you getting with that? Not even one trip to the grocery store?
A trip to Walmart.
That's, who can live off of that? And with the trouble that we're seeing here with Social Security, they're saying that it's going to be reduced by 22% in 2032 if Congress doesn't act. 22% in 2032. That's right around the corner, man. That's
coming
right
up.
here.
It's coming up.
And we haven't done anything.
No.
Nothing. The government's taken no action. Everybody's acting like it's not going to happen. Everybody's just ignoring the problem, the elephant in the room. And, listen, I can tell you right now, I'm planning for my retirement in about 10 or so years down the road here. And if I have to count on 22% less of my Social Security when the time comes after I've worked hard and paid into it all these years, I'm not going to be happy about that. And that's not going to sit well with me. It's really an issue, a problem that needs to get dealt with now. And if you're Mitch's age, which is in his late 20s, and you are planning for the future, I would not count on getting 100% of what they tell you you're going to get from Social Security. No. There's just no way.
No. And when I see that, I can't help to think, it's a $250 billion deficit for just the Social Security fund. We're operating right now in a $3 to $4 trillion deficit when you look at our tax receipts versus expenditures. And what that screams to me is what the case that we're always making is that taxes are going to go up in the future. If just Social Security alone is operating at a $250 billion deficit, by 2032, that could be a $400 billion deficit, right? So they're going to have to raise taxes. They're going to have to address that, or at least try. Somebody's going to have to. And so when I see that, I'm like, guys, taxes are going up. This is the time to take action, to convert to Roths, to contribute to 401ks, to do everything you can before this tax picture gets worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that Roth conversion thing is
Yeah.
unbelievably important right
Yeah.
now. It's important on so many levels. I mean, when you think about not only, you're getting that money out of, the hands of the government, and whatever they decide tax rates are going to be down the road, but you're also getting it over into a tax-free growth environment where you can just grow it and never ever have to worry about anybody dipping their hands into it. That's a powerful, powerful thing. So if you haven't considered Roth conversions, that's something you need to really be thinking about. Yeah. So, getting back to people just not contributing enough into their plans. We've heard so many times, and I remember telling clients this years ago, like, look, you got to at least do the match, right? If there's a 4% match or a 5% match, you've got to do the match at least. And, I think that was almost a disservice to people, because you got to do more than the match.
Yeah.
If you're getting a 5% match, the first 5% that you put in there is getting 100% return on it. And that's pretty awesome, considering that's free money that you're never going to see again if you don't take advantage of it. But on top of that, I mean, listen, if you are coming home at the end of the month, paying all your bills, and you have a surplus, you are fortunate enough to be in this country and have a surplus at the end of the month, that surplus should be put into your 401k. You should up the percentage of how much you contribute to the 401k until that surplus is almost zero.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you will only help yourself. You'll only help your spouse. You'll only help your children by doing that and getting that to the max level you can possibly handle without it really affecting your lifestyle dramatically. And maybe it does affect it a little bit. I mean, suck it up, right? Like, that's the way that you get ahead. That's the way that you get to retirement. And I can tell you, if you're in that 10-year window before you get to retirement, which we kind of call the red zone, if you're in the red zone and you're not maxing out that 401k and you have the ability to, think about it. Really take some time and sit down and understand, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Where is this money going? Because I can tell you where it's going. Amazon.
Yep.
It's going to Amazon. It's going to eating out.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that we see. And I'm going to tell you, is really, do you need that stuff? Do you need that stuff that bad that it really, you don't need to be putting that money into your retirement plan and building security for your family and your financial future when that paycheck stops, right? Like, that's a lot more important. And people spend more time every year planning their family vacation than they do financially planning. Just let that sink in for a minute. That is an absolute insult to someone in our business, but it's the absolute reality of things. People spend more time planning a family vacation than they do financial planning every single year. And I get it, because planning a vacation is kind of fun.
That's much more fun. It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's more fun to think about.
No hard conversations.
Yeah. I mean, you're searching hotel rooms and flights, and that's a lot. People can handle that. It's a lot easier. But let me tell you guys, like, look, this is real stuff.
Yeah.
This is real stuff. And you've got to really take ownership here. And if you're feeling like you're behind and you haven't done the things that you need to do, it's time. It's time to stop, get your fiscal house in order, start looking at your budget, start getting real, and start really finding where the money is going, and really get serious about saving money, right? Okay, so um yeah, again, something else I would think about along these lines is um it, think about where you're saving money, right? Saving pre-tax money is great, but a lot of times what we see is people do have, and they're so prevalent nowadays, people have Roth 401k options that they didn't know about. And those Roth 401ks are a great place
They
to
are.
be saving additional money to, above that match that you're going to get. And if you do reduce the amount you're putting in the traditional 401k in lieu of the Roth 401k, make sure they're matching the Roth side, because a lot of times they don't match the Roth side the way they do the traditional side, because it doesn't give the company the tax
Yeah.
incentives that they get for traditional. So just be careful with that. But I would say make sure you're maxing out that match on the traditional side. And if there is a match on the Roth side, I'd be all over that. But if you have a Roth option available, consider diverting some of that percentage to the Roth side, because that is a great place to have some money when you retire.
And if you don't have the Roth 401k, I mean, max out the Roth IRA. The limit is $7,000 a year. That's $600 a month. We see so often people in that retirement red zone. You're probably in your peak earning years of your life. A lot of people come in with true surpluses, right?
Yeah.
If you can find an extra $600 a month, max out that Roth. That's easy. But again, you're going to thank yourself so much 10 years down the road when, if you're doing that every year, that Roth could grow to 100K in 10 years, right? So you're going to thank yourself so much later once you're at that point. So max out that Roth.
Moving on here, so let's talk about some tax efficiency planning cracks that we see as well. One of the things that I see quite a bit of nowadays is people don't know how to manage after tax accounts. We call them individual accounts or brokerage accounts, and a lot of times, these accounts, they're taxed differently. You have capital gains that you have to worry about on those, and realizing gains and realizing losses. And when someone comes in and we're meeting with them, and I'm doing a review of the tax return, which we do with every single client that walks in the door, I see where they are writing off a loss in their brokerage account. And that always puzzles me a little bit, because that's probably not the best place to do that, or to handle the taxes, or the best way to go about doing that. And a lot of times when we see they're writing off, what is it, like $3,000 a year is the limit that you can do on that, on some big loss they took in an investment that they made. They're not able to really, maximize that loss, so to speak, whereas they had maybe some really highly appreciated position that they had really done well in that brokerage account, and they could have, offset that loss by selling some of that, realizing some gain in that really highly appreciated position that they want to kind of get out of anyway. And they just don't understand that. And so that is something that we teach folks that work with us all the time. We actually have a tax loss harvesting team that works on those accounts with us to make sure that you handle those positions correctly, and that when you realize gains and realize losses, that you're doing it in the most tax efficient way possible, right? So we see that quite a bit. The other thing that we would see is dividends.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I was
for a
going to
minute.
say, I mean, this is the one that, when you've got after tax accounts, guys, we see this so often. People love to open up a brokerage account. They've got their 401k and they're like, I want to do some investing on the side, which is awesome. Again, we're talking about that. You should absolutely do that. But what you don't want to do is start buying all these dividend funds and income funds, because guys, what's happening is, there's two types of tax consequences in an after-tax account. You either have dividends and interest or you have capital gains. If you're just holding a stock, you're not having to pay taxes throughout the year until you sell it, right? So that's capital gains. That's what we want to see in after-tax accounts. We don't want to see these dividends and interest. A lot of people, you're earning 4 or 5% interest on this account. You're probably just reinvesting it, which is great. It's good to earn that, but you're paying taxes on all that stuff. You're paying ordinary income taxes unless they're qualified dividends, which they're probably not. So what you really want to avoid stacking up a bunch of these dividend and interest funds in these after-tax accounts, because you're probably not using it to fund any lifestyle. It's probably just being reinvested. And you're paying all these taxes along the way that's going into your ordinary income.
Yeah. What's the saying? The surest way to build wealth is to avoid paying taxes on money you're not using, right?
That's a good one. That's a good one, Stewart.
Yeah. That's something that we help folks with, is managing those capital gains and really helping you to make sure that you don't get yourself into a unnecessary taxable event there. The other thing that we see is, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, so let's just talk about this for a second. We have a lot of people who are charitably inclined, and we see that you're not necessarily doing your charitable contributions correctly. And what I mean by that is, if you've reached age 70 and a half in this country, then you are now eligible to do what's called qualified charitable donations, QCDs. And if you are still tithing, or you're giving money to any 503c nonprofit organization during the year, St. Jude's, we see it all over the place, and you're doing that in a manner where you're just giving them after-tax money and then getting a tax deduction on your taxes, that's not the most tax efficient way to do it. What you really want to do is give that, whatever organization it is, whether it be a church or any other nonprofit, give them the money directly from your IRA. And if you send the money directly from your IRA, then that is money that literally just comes right off the top of your taxable income. And it's like another standard deduction on your taxes. And it is really nice. It is a much more tax efficient way to do it. And it can also count as your required minimum distribution as well, which is very, very nice. So if you're doing that kind of thing, get smart about how you're doing it and make sure you're doing it right.
This is so commonly misunderstood, Stewart. In the current tax code we have now, this just got passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Before this, you weren't even able to do it. But you either have to take, a lot of people don't understand, you either have to take the standard deduction, which most people do, or itemize and take charitable contributions. Right now, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, you can take $2,000 charitable contribution on top of the standard deduction, which is great. But if you're tithing to the church, you're probably doing more than $2,000. So you're probably not even seeing much tax deduction from this. So if you're contributing a lot to different charities, to churches, whatever it is, really consider using pre-tax money if you're over 70, because you're probably not getting the full benefit from your contributions that you're doing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about a lot today. I think we're going to wrap it up here. We will continue this conversation in our next episode. This has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed talking through this stuff with you guys. Listen, really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully we see you next week on Clear Path Retirement Radio Podcast. I'm Stewart Smith with Mitch Davies. Until next week, happy retirement. Hey, if you enjoyed what you heard today on our podcast, please tune in every week. And if you don't mind, drop us a like or subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. It helps us to get this great information out to more folks.